Hi friends, this is Sandhya. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a terrarium builder card. I'm going to be featuring the stamps and dies from the WIT kit from February. So I started by die cutting the terrarium piece, and then I also stamped it out on a piece of acetate to kind of make a guide for myself. Using that guide, I'm going to position my little stamps in such a way that they kind of fit in the right area of the terrarium, leaving some space for me to stamp out the pebbles in the bottom. I start out with nice green shade. That's the emerald green from Hero Arts. These are dye inks, and I don't really bother with my Misty tool for this because I want to just go ahead and keep stamping freely. And I'm not too bothered about multiple impressions because I'm kind of thinking of it as being behind the glass of a terrarium, so it's not going to look exactly smooth. So that's my excuse. And I'm going to keep stamping. So you can see I'm playing with different ink colors and stamping away. For this succulent, I used pink and then a little bit of grape juice and dabbed away at some of the excess so I get like a subtle shadow effect. Again, I kind of use the acetate as a guide to kind of figure out where I want to position the piece. So once I have two of the largest succulents down, I use the smaller ones and I choose lighter colors for these so then I can fill out the rest of the space evenly so it doesn't look like too heavy on any one side. So I'm using lime green on this particular succulent, and then I think I do it a couple times. And then I go ahead and add the last one using a darker shade of green. The best part about this technique is that you can keep layering the succulents right next to each other without worrying too much about masking or anything. The subtle overlap actually creates depth and shadows that makes it look a little bit more lively than it would if you just stamp them out flat. Next, I grabbed soft granite. This is a soft gray dye ink, also from Hero Arts, and then I stamped pebbles all over the bottom of the terrarium. Once I'm happy with the spread, I grab a little bit of frayed burlap. This is a distress ink, and then I use my blending tool to blend over the bottom. Kind of looks like there is sand filled between the pebbles and it fills out the space so it doesn't look weird and empty. Next, I stamp the terrarium directly on my Misty and then position the guide right over that. I insert my, stamped piece, the die cut piece right below it so I can position it exactly the way I want it. And then I go ahead and stamp down the terrarium on top of that. I'm using VersaFine Nocturne, which is a really intense black ink, so I get a really crisp image right on top. As you can see here, I did not take care to position it correctly. However, that was quite easy to fix. In this case, I just grabbed my scissors and fussy cut around the edges to remove the little excess areas. And that leaves me with a nice and crisp terrarium that's ready to be popped onto my card front. Next, I punched a hole right at the top. You see the area where there's a little circle. And then I use a little eyelet. I grab this nice purple kind of a shade that matches really well. And then I use the crocodile to kind of clip it into place. Next, I use one of the pattern papers from the Glass Garden pack that came with the WIT kit. And I feel like the darker background offsets the white of my terrarium beautifully. I go ahead and trim it down to 4¼ by 5½. However, I go ahead and rip off a little bit from the top and bottom so as to have that jagged edge to add a little more interest and also to kind of bring out a little more contrast instead of having a simple plain pattern paper for the background. Once I've ripped it down and I'm kind of happy with the size, I go ahead and put some of my waxed cord. Like this is the kind of cord that's usually sold for jewelry making, but I find that it is kind of stiff and works well for my cards. It's lightweight too. So I go around the pattern paper panel and then kind of intertwine it and push it and pull it through the little eyelet in such a way that I can tie a bow up front and it doesn't look bulky and weird. So I just try to pull it through the eyelet after the knot and then, tie that bow. I have gotten much better at tying bows these days, so I finally managed to get an even looking bow. All right, so then I grabbed some worn lipstick Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to be directly ink blending on my card base. So I grab like a scrap piece of paper and some washi tape to mask off the back of my card so it doesn't get super messy. And then I go ahead to blend some ink on the top and bottom of the front of the card front. After doing a little bit of worn lipstick, I felt like it was a bit too light, and so to add a little more contrast and to tie in that purple shade from the succulent, I grabbed a little bit of wilted violet and blended that into the pink. I felt like that gave enough contrast and it's quite happy, so I added some foam tape to the back of my panel. I have this really large foam tape that I got from Amazon, and yeah, I do love using it quite liberally. And popping it up kind of gives that little bit extra oomph factor that kind of makes the card stand out. I then grab a little sentiment strip from my bowl. This is a happy birthday that I stamped out of the Heart of Autumn sentiment kit from the past sentiment kits. I blended a little bit of ink over it and glued it down on top of the terrarium. I grabbed some animal dots. These are from Gina Marie Designs. Actually, these are freebies she sent to me along with my die purchase. I grab a little adhesive square to kind of make sure my bow stays in place, and I position that, and that completes my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like my card video, do hit the like button and subscribe to stay tuned. Have a nice day.